In 1992, Kevin Smith began the process of selling his belongings, spending his college fund, and maxing out several credit cards to fund the creation of his movie Clerks. This endeavor was likely to wind up being a cautionary tale about ruining your life over a pipe dream, but against all odds, Clerks was a massive hit, and it turned Kevin Smith into the greatest indie film feel-good story. Regular guy from New Jersey, who made it in the business on his own terms. He would now be given a shot to make a big studio movie. That film was Mallrats. Clerks, but in a mall, as Kevin Smith pitched it. The expectations for this movie were high. Early screenings were held at Comic-Con, and the crowd's extremely positive reception excited the studio. This film was going to do $100 million. And then it didn't.
Mallrats was a bomb.
On its opening weekend of October 20th to the 22nd of 1995, it placed 13th. It got absolutely demolished by a Rosie O'Donnell film named Now and Then. Got beaten by The Big Green, which was basically Sandlot but soccer. It was below How to Make an American Quilt, which was on its 13th week. It was also beaten by Strange Days, but honestly I get that one. Very underrated classic, should have been even higher. And on top of the poor ticket sales, critics also hated it.
But when it came out, critics like shit in its mouth.
I sat stone-faced throughout Mallrats, not laughing once. I couldn't believe it was the same talent involved that made Clerks.
This flop could easily have killed Kevin Smith's career. But despite the baggage that comes with it, Kevin Smith has always wanted to do a sequel to Mallrats. And this dream has been close to reality on a number of occasions. This is the story of Mallrats 2. This video is sponsored by Saley. Let me tell you about the time I got lost in Canada. Had to be about 10 years ago, maybe more. I was on tour somewhere in Ontario, don't remember exactly where, and I'm trying to find some coffee. So the guy at the venue gives me directions, and somehow I take a wrong turn and it winds up being a 40-minute long ordeal. I'm way too broke for any kind of international phone plan, so I have no data and no way to message anybody. Eventually I found my way back on my own, but it would have been great to have Saley then. Saley is an eSIM app that keeps your device connected when you travel internationally. It's easy to download the app and set up a data plan for your trip before you even get there. You can set a limit or get unlimited data. It works in over 160 countries, and you don't need to worry about installing a new eSIM for each country. It's all in one convenient place. And because it's an app, there's no dealing with lines at the airport or scammers hanging around with fake eSIMs at the train station. They also have 24/7 support, and in the unlikely case that your device isn't compatible, they'll give you a full refund. If you're planning on traveling internationally anytime soon, scan my QR code or go to saley.com/wang. You'll get 15% off at checkout when you use code WANG. Once again, that's saley.com/wang. I remember seeing ads for Mallrats in comics and game magazines all the time in 1995. But I didn't really get what it was about back then, and it didn't really catch my interest. I think at the time the target audience might have been slightly older than me. It actually wound up being Clerks the Animated Series that kicked off my interest in anything to do with Kevin Smith. And then after that, a burned copy of the original Clerks movie that I illegally pirated would be my most viewed movie at work. I'd quickly work my way through the rest of this filmography, and I enjoyed pretty much all of it. I remember watching Mallrats and being like, wait, why does everybody say this movie sucks? 1995 was a big year for comedy movies. You know, Tommy Boy, Clueless, Friday, Ace Ventura When Nature Calls. These movies were all instant hits, but Mallrats was far from it. This was the type of movie that would find a second life on VHS and DVD. Spread the word of mouth. It's the type of film you discover walking around Blockbuster trying to find something to watch. Stuff like The Big Lebowski, The Thing, Donnie Darko. Mallrats follows the story of T.S. Quint, played by Jeremy London, and Brody Bruce, played by professional skateboarder Jason Lee in his first acting role. The guys are going through some relationship issues, so they decide to take their minds off of it by hanging out at the mall, where of course, shenanigans ensue. It involves a cast that includes the likes of Ethan Suplee, Shannon Doherty, Ben Affleck, and Stan Lee. In fact, according to Kevin Smith, Shannon Doherty was the only reason this movie got greenlit in the first place, since at this point in time she was one of the biggest stars in the world and chose Mallrats to be her first movie following Beverly Hills 90210. This film also exists in the same universe as Clerks well before it seemed like every single movie had to be a part of some kind of cinematic universe. It features a returning Jay and Silent Bob, and it's full of connections to other Kevin Smith movies. And because Mallrats was expected to be such a huge success, Universal wanted Kevin Smith to have an idea for a potential sequel even before the movie came out.
And I was like, a sequel? Seriously? He goes, yeah, what would you do if the studio was like, we want to greenlight a sequel right now?
What he came up with was Die Hard but in a mall. Not really the first thing you'd expect, but I see the vision. But then, Mallrats flopped.
Thanks for reminding me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Rub it in, man.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
That's a good, okay.
How was this sequel ever gonna get made? In the director's commentary for the 1999 DVD release of Mallrats, we got an answer. The story was now going to be told in a comic book.
For the comic book savvy, we're sequelizing Mallrats in the comics this winter, I believe.
That, of course, didn't happen. Although the Die Hard concept did wind up kind of happening, it was now the third act of Jay and Silent Bob reboot, 20 plus years later. Kevin has even changed his outlook on this idea.
Because people would have been baffled. They're like, why do you think this is what Mallrats 2 looks like? What are you, out of your mind?
Would fans of the original movie have appreciated such a massive tonal shift? Would they find the idea of Canadian terrorists funny? Really, pressing on with the sequel idea was Kevin Smith's way of honoring producer Jim Jacks, who had paved the way to get the first Mallrats made and passed away in the years since. At this point, Mallrats 2 was just a hypothetical sequel. No studio was going to fund a sequel to a movie that was such a massive flop. This brings us back to the View Askew universe. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back from 2001 was a love letter to the Kevin Smith fanboys. We're revisiting as many old characters as we're willing to come back, and that includes Brody Bruce. The film gives us a small glimpse of what Brody's life is like 6 years later. A poster in the background indicates that Brody had left his gig hosting The Tonight Show, and he now appears to own a comic book shop. And every rewrite of Mallrats uses the ending montage as canon. Ben Affleck's character Shannon did go to prison. Jay and Silent Bob did get a monkey. Clerks 2 would come out in 2006. This is our first official sequel to the Jersey trilogy of films, and that potentially opens up the door for everything else. What about Mallrats 2? In 2015, it looked like the sequel might actually be happening. On March 20th of 2015, we started getting confirmations of cast members coming back for the new production. We're going back to the mall, y'all. You see Michael Rooker, Stan Lee, Jason Mewes, and Kevin Smith throwing up a number 2.
Do you have any info on Mallrats 2?
I do.
March 23rd, you got Shannon Doherty confirming her involvement on the podcast Hollywood Babylon. March 24th, no more chipmunks to tie him up, here's Jason Lee. The next month or so is filled with more and more confirmations for Mallrats 2. And on May 9th, Kevin Smith posts this. 20 years in the making, 113 pages full of old friends and new jokes. This is for you, Jim. Wish you were here. Hashtag Mallbrats. And there's the cover of the first draft of the Mallrats sequel, Mallbrats. The brats seemingly being a reference to some of the kids the characters had in the time since, particularly Brody Bruce's daughter named Banner Bruce. The film was really starting to happen, and in September, the search for a mall to film in was finished. But although it was exciting to see such an unlikely project come to fruition, people had questions. You know, at this point in time, malls are becoming ghost towns all around the country. With that, how do you even make something like this make sense?
Believe me, the movie does nothing but comment on the fact that, like, who goes to the mall anymore?
Of course, Kevin Smith is also known for announcing projects that never happen. For example, Clerks the Animated Series, the movie, which, as you've probably guessed, of any Kevin Smith project is the one that I want the most. And if other interviews are to be believed, it's taken Kevin Smith years to actually write the scripts to movies that he said were set to film already. And then there's the issue of legal rights. Kevin Smith didn't actually own Mallrats, only the characters Jay and Silent Bob. So if he wanted to make the sequel and finance it himself, he would have to buy the rights. He's also getting told that Universal doesn't make legacy sequels. A legacy sequel being one that takes place in the same timeline as the original but has a focus on new characters. Think stuff like Bill and Ted Face the Music, Top Gun Maverick, and Beetlejuice. So if the focus is on Brody's kid, then that's a legacy sequel. Kevin Smith just wrote the script before securing the rights. And then he would find out that Universal doesn't sell their films. Even ones that, as Shannon Doherty joked, were career-killing bombs. So it sounded like this was going to basically be a Gwimbly situation.
It's my IP to sit on and do nothing with.
But in this case, Universal actually was open to making the sequel. An announcement was made that there would be a 10-episode Mallrats series. Kevin Smith had just directed the pilot for the Flash series, and he wanted to try his luck with TV again. Which, I mean, they kind of owed it to him considering what happened with the Clerks TV series. Not the animated series, the live-action series. Kevin Smith is pushed out of its development, and you wind up with something that's totally unrecognizable as anything to do with Clerks. Just a generic 90s sitcom with a laugh track.
What does cause cancer, Sandra?
Lotion. Think about it. Everyone who tans uses lotion.
You're serious. It could be true, Dante. Leave the poor goddess alone.
Mallrats would turn out differently. He said that the first episode of the Mallrats TV series was the best thing he's ever written, and he starts lining up dates.
It's half a script right now, and we're pulling our loot together. I mean, we've got, up until the beginning of 2016, so it feels like by the time we get to May 2016, we're going to be shooting.
Jason Mewes mentioned shooting it the next year.
The goal and the plan is to start shooting hopefully around February, March of next year for Mallrats 2.
Then it just didn't happen. Stan Lee, of course, passed away on November 12th of 2018. And fittingly, he has a posthumous cameo in 2019's Captain Marvel, where he's seen reading a Mallrats script.
Maybe I'll get a cameo. Now, I'm saying it in front of people, so you'll be embarrassed if you don't give me a cameo in whatever schloggy thing you're going to do next. All right?
In 2019, Brody's back for Jay and Silent Bob reboot. Still in the mall, rocking the same look, winking and nodding to the audience that they're watching a Hollywood movie that's making fun of Hollywood milking franchises to death, while acknowledging that they're milking the View Askew universe to death. Through 2020, despite it still not having happened yet, Kevin Smith continues discussing Mallrats 2 in interviews, and then the script is finished. Now it's called Twilight of the Mallrats. Thanks to quarantine, I finally finished a funny first draft of Twilight of the Mallrats. This was being written around the same time as his other project, Moose Jaw. And although after the original announcement, people were concerned that Mallrats 2 wouldn't really make sense in this day and age, now the story revolves around the current reality of malls. Looks like we're heading toward it now in 2021, which is very exciting for us, said Smith. It takes place 25 years after the original and features the entire cast, and a new cast of characters as well. It's about Brody and his daughter and the death of them all. The Brody that we met in Mallrats has only been proven right in life. The world came around to his way of thinking. So, based on that, Brody never really had to grow up. And now, at this juncture in time, we face the moment when he might actually have to become an adult. And then in August, the cast confirmations start to come in again. Ben Affleck is confirmed, Shannon Doherty's read the script, and Brody's daughter Banner Bruce has been cast. She's going to be played by Aparna Brielle, who worked with Kevin Smith in playing Jihad in Jay and Silent Bob reboot. He was so impressed that he wrote Twilight of the Mallrats around her, and supposedly Bruce Campbell was also going to be involved. There was also renewed excitement as a restored deluxe Blu-ray was put out of Mallrats with new content from Kevin Smith. Twilight of the Mallrats was going to match beat for beat with the original movie. You can even hear it in the cold read of the script by Shannon Doherty, where her character Renee is waking up Brody in his current day bedroom that looks identical to his room in 1995.
Renee gets off the bed, looks at all the posters on the wall. Brody goes, why? He's referring to his daughter being outside. Why? Isn't this a school day? Oh shit. This is not another quarantine, is it? I don't have any toilet paper.
I see you managed to rescue some of your shit from my garbage.
I can't believe you had the nerve to throw my life out of our house.
You don't live there anymore, so the Brody Bruce Museum is out of business. I mean, look at all of this shit.
You know what? I'm proud of all my professional accomplishments. Amused, Renee sees a particular frame on the wall. She says,
You framed our divorce papers.
And my personal accomplishments.
This dialogue will confirm a lot of the plot and details that we had heard about the film previously. And Brody Bruce has in many ways become real-life Kevin Smith.
Brody is holding on steadfast to the 90s. I swear the character is not based on me.
In many ways a representation of the crippling effects of nostalgia. And like the problem the main character faces, how will this film honor the past but still exist in the current day? Then from 2020 to 2022, everything Mallrats 2 once again goes silent. Clerks 3 comes out in 2022 though, and even has a Mallrats cameo, with Ethan Suplee showing up as his character William Black.
Landlord! When will I see the goddamn sailboat?
On his podcast, Fat Man Beyond, Kevin mentions that the success of Clerks 3, which only had a $7 million budget, was making it look more likely that Mallrats 2 could actually happen. In a later speaking engagement, he refers to Clerks 3 as the kaopectate that loosens up the shit of Mallrats 2.
Universal wound up co-financing Jay and Silent Bob reboot on the foreign end of the equation. So Jasper, our exec, was like, hey, we liked working with you, man, and we want to keep it going. What do you want to do next? I said, honestly, you guys have something in mind that I would love to fucking play with. I've been trying to play with for like 5 years. Then he's like, Mallrats? I was like, yeah, I want to do Mallrats sequel. So he's like, all right, if that's what you want. He's going, let's look into it.
But then 2023 would come along and Universal is still dragging their feet.
And all the Universal execs sat around a table with me on the other side. They held up my script for Mallrats 2 and they were like, Kevin, this is neither fast nor furious.
According to Joey Lauren Adams, Kevin's team was getting frustrated. Ethan Suplee said it at Steel City Con. All I've heard about Mallrats 2 is that I believe Kevin wrote a script and he asked a bunch of people. Everyone from what I was told said yes. And then a bunch of rights are tied up at Universal, and Universal is not saying yes to making the movie. Jeremy London mentioned he's been hearing about this movie for 8 years and it still hasn't happened.
My kid was 6 months old whenever Kevin first proposed Mallrats 2 to us, said it was going to happen, and now he's 8.
But despite all the fake outs and false starts happening with this movie over nearly a decade, it seems like cast members have actually been getting more eager to finally get it made, especially as they've been seeing a newer wave of young fans watching the original Mallrats for the first time.
It's nice when people come up and it's like a 75-year-old who's like, here's my daughter, I showed her the movie, and then she showed her daughters the movie, or son, whatever.
It's like a nesting
doll.
They do.
It's really great. So there'll be like a 14-year-old and a 75-year-old, and it's pretty amazing to see. Like, it's great.
On July 13th of 2024, the plans for this film would be altered forever as Shannen Doherty passed away following a lengthy battle with cancer. You might think that this would have ended the movie permanently, but in fact, it seems to have actually made it much more likely. In an interview with People, Kevin Smith spoke about how Shannen Doherty really wanted to do this sequel, and they'd actually spoken about it shortly before her death. At the time of her death, though, the project had actually been shelved. But after she died, one of his producers hit him up and said, hey, what if we did this as a tribute to her? And he was really into that idea. Still, with the history of this production and Kevin Smith's productions in general, you can't really take that at face value. As one commenter on a Reddit thread I saw posted, I've learned to just assume that a Kevin Smith movie isn't happening until I see an actual trailer. It's only been a couple months since this happened, so it remains to be seen if the wheels really do get set into motion this time. Anyway, that's all for now. If you like this video, turn on notifications, and check out my video on the movie The Burning, featuring a young George Costanza. I'm out.